Welcome to the Academy, your training hub for entrepreneurship in this new digital economy. People from all walks of life, students, professionals, and online entrepreneurs, direct sellers, online dropshippers are now looking for innovative ways and means to maximize the power of this new digital economy and learn from home and earn from home as well. Remember that there are 3 critical success factors for you to be successful in this new digital economy. Number 1 is your entrepreneurial mindset. Number 2, your entrepreneurial mastery. And number 3 is your entrepreneurial management. 3 questions that you have to ask yourself. What are you passionate about? Number 2, what are the relative skills that you have in this new economy? And number 3, what do you think are the expectations of your partners or your clients or your customers? We at the Academy offer you valuable masterclass courses that will develop you and hone you to become a champion entrepreneur online. We want you to become a digital brand in this new economy. So click the link below and learn more about the 4 masterclass courses that we offer in entrepreneurship, in entrepreneurial management, digital entrepreneurship, and digital selling. So again, I'm your coach, Jonathan Petalver of the Academy, your training hub for entrepreneurship in this new digital economy. Welcome and see you in class. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, United States, and good evening in Asia. Good afternoon as well in Europe. So again, this is your Coach Jonathan of the Global Academy, New Zealand. And we are now welcoming you to the session of Coach Gary Smith. We are now on our Series 7, of which we're going to talk about entrepreneurial productivity. So with us, again, joining from Boston, and later on, we will be joined by another guest from San Francisco, California. So with us, let's welcome Coach Gary Smith. How are you, Gary?
I'm very, very well. Good evening to you in Asia, Jonathan, and good evening to our students around the world. It's great to have everyone with us.
Season 7.
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to our session today.
Wow, it's time is running fast, really, right? We are now on Season 7. And it's good that we are about to talk about this time what leadership or keys to entrepreneurial productivity is all about.
Okay, well, so let's jump right in. Welcome, students, today. It's great to have everybody with us. Let's do a quick sort of recap. One of the things I've tried to do in each session is do a recap of exactly what we have been through, not only so that you can go back and listen to and watch some of the other sessions, but it's a building block process. And one of the comments I often make is that I repeat things because repetition is the mother of skill and learning. So in episode 1, we talked about your entrepreneurial mindset. What is the set of your mind? Because that ultimately determines how you look at yourself, how you look at your possibility for success in the future. It determines how you see other people and how other people see you. And then we talked in session 2 about the power of choice, and we examined your belief system and uncovering the need to uncover what it is that we believe and find the beliefs that are serving us and those that are not, and find ways to be able to change those. And then we delved into finding your purpose. Why are you really here? What has God put you on this planet to accomplish? And why is that important for you? And then we talked about the concept of gaps, that there are gaps that exist in things that we need to learn, and there are also gaps in that exist in the people that we need to become. And how do we go about defining those and then setting ourselves up to be able to close those gaps? And then we talked about basic needs, that how do we factor in our daily needs? Because we all have to make money. We all have a desire for achievement. We all have a need for relationships. We all have a need for some sort of spiritual connection with God. And how does that factor into, and how do we create harmony and congruency between that and our belief system and our purpose? And then last week we talked about dealing with the mundane, how we are in a situation where there's a portion of, and sometimes the majority of our entrepreneurial activities that aren't really the things that we are passionate about doing, and yet they have to be done. So how do we go about doing that? And today we're going to talk about keys to entrepreneurial productivity. So once we have a purpose, how do we go about figuring out what we're going to do in order to achieve that purpose? And there's so many factors that come together there. The first thing that we need to talk about is knowing what it is that you want. And you have a purpose that you're trying to achieve in life, but what is it that you really want? Not just in your career, not just in your entrepreneurial activities, but in all the areas of your life. When we think about what do you want spiritually? What do you want in your marriage if you're married? What do you want as far as your relationship with your children and your extended family relationships? What do you want in your career? Or if you're a business owner, what is it that you want your business to be about? What is it that you want your business to produce? What do you want financially? Taking into consideration all of those things, not only from the standpoint of what is it that you want to accomplish, but again, going back to our discussion on gaps, who is it that you have to become in order to be able to achieve those things, and to realize that all of those things are interconnected. And so what we want to do is look at what we want and say, how does that point us toward the achievement ultimately of our purpose? And that becomes very, very critical, because if you have wants and desires in your life that may not necessarily be contributing to the attainment of the overall purpose, the overall things that you want to achieve with your life, then you need to revisit those and begin to create that harmony. Once we have that in place, the second thing we need to do is we need to set goals for how we're going to get from where we are to where we want to be. And the real key that I have found to goal achievement is what I call granularity. Because let's say that you set a goal that may be 2 or 3 years in the future. What happens for a lot of people is that when they look at the enormity of that goal, they begin to defeat themselves, because they look at it and say, gee, I mean, yeah, it's a worthy goal and everything, but it's such a big goal that there's no way that I can possibly attain that. And the only way to be able to deal with that is getting very, very granular. So let's say that you have a goal that you want to achieve 12 months from now. Well, break it down and say, what is it that I need to achieve in the first quarter of this year, in the first 3 months? What is it that I need to achieve? And then say, okay, I know what I need to achieve in the next 3 months. What do I need to achieve this month? And then what do I need to achieve this week? And boil it down to a point where you get so granular that you can answer this question: what must I do today, right now, to achieve a goal that may be a year or more in the future? And when you do that, there is real power in that, because number one, you know exactly what it is that you need to do today. But number two, chances are the thing that you need to do today in order to achieve a distant goal is not anything major. It may be something as simple as making a phone call, or sending an email, or beginning to develop a relationship with someone or some organization. So really what it gets down to is that we're taking baby steps day after day after day after day. And when we do that, when we know the little things that we have to do every day and we do them, then when we get 3 or 4 or 5 months down the road and we turn around and we look back, we are just absolutely overwhelmed at how far we've come and all that we've accomplished. And what that does is it builds that self-confidence muscle in us and gives us the ability to keep pushing forward, because we're achieving a little bit every day. The third thing we need to talk about is prioritizing your work, because you always want to stay focused on your most important priorities. And that's the whole idea of getting granular and knowing what you need to do. There's a very interesting story that I'll share with you. Back in the early 1900s here in the United States, there was a gentleman named Charles Schwab who became president of the United States Steel Corporation. And when he took over the company, he realized that he and his staff were not being as productive as they needed to be. And so he hired an efficiency expert, a gentleman by the name of 𝙁𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙁, and asked him to come in and talk to him about this problem that they were having. And he sat with 𝙁𝙊𝙇 and he said, if you can help me and my senior staff become more productive at what we do, I will pay you within reason whatever you ask. And 𝙁𝙊𝙇 said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take out a blank piece of paper and I want you to write on that piece of paper the top 6 things that you need to accomplish tomorrow. And Charles Schwab got a piece of paper and took maybe 5 or 10 minutes and he wrote down the top 6 things he needed to do. And 𝙁𝙊𝙇 said, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to number them in order of priority, with 1 being the most important and 6 being the least important. And Schwab took a couple of minutes and numbered each of the 6 items he had written down. And then 𝙁𝙊𝙇 said, fold up that piece of paper, put it in your pocket. When you come into work tomorrow morning, I want you to take out that sheet of paper, look at number 1, and start working toward the attainment of that, completing that number 1 task that you have assigned yourself. And he said, I know that there's going to be interruptions. You're going to get phone calls. People are going to stop by your office. You're going to have to go to meetings, yada, yada, yada. But as much as you can, stay focused on number 1. And whenever you get an interruption, come back and work on number 1 until it's completed. And then go on to number 2, and go on to number 3, go on to number 4, there, so on and so forth. And he said, I tell you that for several important reasons. He said, number 1, if you can't get all 6 of those things done using this method, there is no way that you can get them done any other way. And he said, number 2, it will keep you focused on what you have defined as your top priorities. And he said, that's what we're really all about. We want to stay focused on your top priorities because therefore you're always working on the things that are most important in your life. And that's really, really critical when we think about this, is that we need to stay focused on our top priorities. Excuse me. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a group of people, and I was talking about time management. And I happened to mention at the beginning of my talk that one of the things that I do is that I'm a business and personal coach. And there was a gentleman in the audience who blurted out, you coaches, you don't know what you're talking about. And then he was instantly embarrassed and profusely apologized. But I said, no, this is a wonderful learning experience. And he said, well, how can that be? I just criticized you. And I said, yeah, but something is going on here. Will you dialogue with me for a few minutes and help me explore this? Because everybody in this room can learn something today. And he said, okay. And I said, obviously, you've had a bad experience with a coach. And he said, yeah, I have. And I said, would you tell me about it, please? And he said, a few years ago, I hired a coach. I worked with him for several months and paid him, multiple thousands of dollars for his advice. And he said, at the end of it, you know what I wound up with? Another to-do list from hell. He said, what do you have to say about that? And I looked at him and I said, shame on your coach. I said, when you work with a good coach, the to-do list that you have, the task list that you have, gets shorter and shorter, but the things on that task list are enormously more important. And that's the whole goal, is to stay focused on, to be able to identify and stay focused on your top priorities. The other thing we need to do when we look at the whole concept of productivity is to be flexible. A lot of times people will set a goal that's 3 years in the future and they want to cast that goal in concrete. And I said, no. The next 6 to 9 months you can put in concrete because you can develop an achievable plan to get there. But that goal in the future needs to be set in sand, because the way we need to look at things is that plans change, decisions don't. So the pathway that we take to the attainment of our goal may not always work out the way we think it will be. There are going to be times when we hit dead ends and we have to turn around and come back. There are other times when God lays opportunities in our lap that will get us to the goal that we've set for ourselves faster, Or maybe it will be a little bit slower, but in the process of doing it, we're going to learn, we're going to acquire more skills, we're going to impact more lives. So we have to be flexible with those things. And finally, the thing I want to talk about is the need to regularly review where we are. I set annual goals, and then I break them down into quarterly goals, into monthly goals, and eventually get down to the daily tasks as we've been talking about. But what I do in that process is I do a daily review. So I set my tasks for the day, and then I go through, and at the end of every day, I review to see where I am, what kind of progress I've made, and looking at things not just from the standpoint of what have I done and what have I not done, but especially on the things that I haven't accomplished. Why has that happened? So that it can be a learning experience. I also do a weekly review every Sunday night from 7 to 9 o'clock at night. I sit
Correct.
down and I go through a weekly review in order to be able to, to determine where I am and take appropriate corrective action. So if you'll take those things into consideration, we'll be in a position where we can be much more productive because we're focused on the right things and we're reviewing our progress on a regular basis.
Correct. Especially Gary right now, right? Amidst this pandemic, it's good that you really uh follow a certain step that you will be comfortable with. And one thing significant or important for me is at least you have a short-term goal for you to be more, like, because there's no other way to be motivated, but to motivate yourself. And just like what you shared, it's a good thing that we learn how to really keep track, right, of our activities. We know, because what we know will work now, these days, might not work, right? And what you think might not work, will work. So how do you do that? You really have to keep a record of your productivity. That's why it's called, for me, that's why it's called productivity, right? Productivity. These are activities that will help you produce. So if you will not write them, it will be challenging for us to know where we are and where we want to go. Now, yeah, we would like to greet Gary again, Mr. Roy Diaz, watching from Pasig City, Iloilo. Yeah, please send us your questions, yes, Mr. Roy, and of course, my mother. My mother is watching tonight, Gary. At the end of
Oh,
the day,
wonderful.
yeah, mother knows best. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and then the support of our parents sometimes is a great motivation as well. Now, my question here, Gary, maybe, yeah, because I'll be doing, as I mentioned to you, next week I'll be in the US, right? And I hope to see you this month. And um, in terms of productivity, because I'll be doing a lecture on digital entrepreneurship, wherein I'm talking about the three potential impact areas. And the good thing, what's interesting here, Gary, is it all starts with letter P as well. It starts with the letter P, right? Product, process, and platform.
Mhm.
Based on the studies that we made, it seems that most businesses, if not all, and those entrepreneurial leaders, um, COVID-19 has impacted, right? COVID-19 has impacted their, how do you call this? Their products, the three P's, the products, process, and platform. And that's exactly our topic today, Gary, right? If your product is affected or your service that you offer, and then if your processes are not aligned, at the same time you don't have a clear cut platform like what we're doing now, I think productivity suffers, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's where the key, one of the keys, is flexibility. Is in realizing what's working, what's not working. Whether it's in your productivity, whether it's in in the process that you're using to get your product out there, or whether it's your platform. We need to
Correct.
be constantly evaluating, and that's one of the things that I teach when I teach people goal
Correct.
setting. I say what you need to do is you have to have a measurement process to be able to determine, are you headed in the right direction? Are the trends in the things that you're doing going in the right direction. And a good example of that is to say, let's say I'm working with a business and their on-time delivery is suffering, and it may very well be because of the pandemic, there may be a shortage of components available for them to be able to complete their product. Well, how do we recognize that up front and before we wind up losing a lot of customers because we say we'll deliver in a certain period of time and we're consistently missing our deliveries? What can
Correct.
we do? Are there other sources? Can we change the design of our product?
Yeah.
What is it that we can do in order to get to where we need to be? But the key to it is to have a measurement system and process so
Yes.
that it serves as an early warning system. So I
Mhm.
know that I have a problem before that problem becomes a disaster.
Correct. So it's very important to those of us who are watching right now. It's very important to understand the gap. Because at the end of the day, don't be afraid to start from scratch, because basically you're not really starting from scratch. It's almost a year and a half that we've been in this pandemic, and for sure some of us will agree that you've been more productive, you've been more you've been getting performance, it's being up and going, right? And yes, just what Gary mentioned, it's really about logging in, right? Jotting down everything that you think will help you move an inch closer to where you want to be. That's why you mentioned about goals, Gary. I always say, I always tell my students and those, like business leaders, make your goals, number one, very clear. Number two, make your goals very achievable, at least as you and your team starts. And number three, make it achievable. I mean, clear, it's concise and achievable. Because if it's clear,
Absolutely.
correct, correct. That's why at least before you let them go, right, you set them free, they know that everything is clear. Thank you,
Yeah.
RC Francisco, for watching. Good evening to both of you, Gary and Coach Jonathan. Thanks for this learning discussion watching from Pasig. And also, Coach Marvin Da Silva, I hope you're getting better from COVID-19. Good evening, Gary and Jonathan. Thanks for all the motivations and advice. So, anything to add, Gary?
Yeah, I think just to highlight what you were talking about, Jonathan, as far as goal setting, I recommend to my clients and my students what I call the smarter process. So it's needs to be goals need to be specific, as you're saying. They need to be
Yeah,
they need to be measurable.
measurable.
You have to be able to measure your progress along the way, because if you can't measure it, you can't achieve it. They need to be actionable. Is it something that you can take action on right now? If it isn't, then it really doesn't fit into the goal setting process.
Correct.
It needs to have an element of risk to it, because we want to continually stretch ourselves. It needs to be time based. So you have to have a deadline for the achievement of the goal. It needs to be exciting. So it energizes you. You need to be energized about the attainment of the goal, and it has to be relevant to the current situation you're in your life. If it is it relevant to the
Correct.
phase of life that you're in? Because if I said, I'm 68, almost 69 years old. If I said that
Mm,
one of my goals is to be, a champion snowboarder or something like that, yeah, at my age, ain't going to happen. It's not relevant to where I am in life. So forget about it.
correct. So it's like saying, when I'm being asked on the lighter side, you have to choose. Do you want to sing or do you want to dance?
Right.
You get the point?
Absolutely.
Like when people are singing and dancing, I will just, take time to talk to them and tell them, you're better in dancing. I think when you go to a dance school, there's a good chance that you'll be 10 over 10. And just keep, and just tuck in your singing ability. Maybe it's not time for now, but you'd rather focus on dancing. But kidding aside, when it comes to business, you know, at the end of the day, Gary, it's really all about focus, right? I mean, instead of doing a lot of things, when you talk about productivity, just focus on activities again that will really move, that will take you or move you an inch, closer
Right.
to where you want to go. For me, it is really about focus. Sometimes it's hard to focus because we are scared to navigate the unknown, but that's where you have to put your trust to God, right? That's where you have to really, the more you have to really take time in the morning. If you can wake up as early as possible and really seek God and listen, because He's talking to us. I mean, that's why I'm telling people, praying is not enough. You really have to communicate, because when you talk about praying, it's just you praying, right? It's just you talking. But nowadays, it's really time for us to really listen more, to really listen more from God. And I'll tell you, He will really give you the right direction. And once you hear that, there's no way that you will be productive, and you will be surprised as well on what the opportunities, right, can give you, can give.
Absolutely. And it's absolutely true. In fact, before I came into, to be with you this morning, I spent time with God in reading his
Amen.
word, in praying,
Amen.
in meditating, and not just in talking with God, but in listening for him. And I think
Amen.
one of the key takeaways here that our students can have is that anything worth building in life, whether it's, spiritual, relationships, business, whatever, everything worth building has to be built on faith. You have to be willing to step
Yes.
out in faith, because if we're going to create anything worthwhile in our lives, we are going to have to step into the unknown. And
Yes.
when we do so, realizing that God has a plan for us and that God has our back, it'll work.
Correct. And God, in based on my experience, uh, I just cannot say that I'm very productive because I did it on my own, but I'm very productive because I know what I'm gonna do, because there's a direction that was set before me. Isn't
Right.
it, Gary? Right? I mean, because
Amen.
when we talk about productivity, let's talk about the technical side of productivity. Then we ask Macy. I think Macy is in the background right now. When you talk about productivity, it's as simple as output over your input. Like for
Right.
instance, if you're in business, you put in $1, then output must be like two or three. It depends on your overhead or your OPEX, right? So if you don't have a clear direction, if you don't really know where you want to go, it's not quantifiable, it's not achievable, it's not clear. I think you are missing something, and that's the best way for us is to really, you know, start with numbers and end with numbers. I think that's also biblical, Gary, right? That you have to learn to number your days. It is written. You really have to number your days. If you can do like 9 to 10, this is what I'm going to do. 10 to 11, 11 to 12, because time is running fast. Just imagine next week is our last session, and it's been 8 weeks. It's been
I know.
it's been like
It seems like we just got started.
yesterday. Correct. It's just like we started last Saturday, and then we talked again, and then let's see, what we can offer them as we end the year, right? As we end the year, maybe we can give them another set of 8 weeks of maybe mind setting, or strategically, giving them a roadmap for next year. How about that, Gary? Right now, Gary, yeah, let's all welcome Macy. Macy's here with us. I hope Macy can hear us. Good morning, Macy.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah,
Macy
okay.
meet
Early
Coach
rinig nga
Gary
ako.
Smith.
Good
Yeah.
morning, Macy. Very nice to
Hi,
meet you.
sir. Good morning.
Correct.
Very
So
nice
our
to meet
topic, I
you.
hope you were able to listen to us, Macy, and just share with us a few words on, with SMDC right now. How would you say that you are as productive as an entrepreneur? Because you know what, Gary, has been traveling, in the Middle East, North America, Asia, and yeah, maybe we can hear from her and share her story, Gary. I mean, listen
Absolutely.
from her story. What do you think? Yeah, come on, Macy.
So sir, from my experience, yes, I have been traveling a lot despite the pandemic. I have been away from the Philippines since last year. And what I try to do to stay productive during this time is personally, first I start with myself. I do yoga, and I practice doing yoga, and then I love reading books, and then I think having a set routine, or having good habits will keep you going. Will keep you to stay fit, and do better in terms of all aspects of your life. Like for example, with work, I always try to do meetings with my team, and then in terms of my clients, I always try to keep them updated, and we do Zoom meetings. And in depends on which country I am. For example, in Manila, it's always the rules are always changing. We're always, lockdown and then not lockdown. And then when I was in Dubai, people there were more open to doing face-to-face meetings. And then, especially here in the States, where I am currently in San Francisco, people here are more open to, really meeting up and
Yeah.
doing presentations. And that's how I close the deals. And that's
Wow.
how I stay
Very productive.
productive.
Correct. Very, very productive. Gary?
A question for you, Macy. How do you handle your days that way? Are you very structured? Do you have like, a task list that you use to
Correct.
manage your way through and in the pursuit of your goals? How do you go about tracking that and deciding what activities you're going to have during the course of a day?
Well, actually, since I'm in sales, sometimes I work Monday to Friday. Sometimes I also work in the weekends. It depends on the client appointments that I get, because depends on which country. Like for example, when I was in Dubai, their weekends are Friday and Saturday, and then here in the States, the weekends are as everyone else, like Saturday, Sunday, same as in Manila. So what I try to do is it's not very structured, but like I try to set a time on when I wake up. And then it depends, for example, since I have different time zones. So let's say, for example, it's like 2 p.m. in the States. I think it's early in the evening in Manila. So what I try to do
Correct.
with the time difference is I try to set the appointments and the client meetings ahead of time so that I can keep up with the schedule. Especially I'm doing three time zones. So that's what I try to do.
Wow.
And then if my meetings are late at night here in the States, I adjust my sleeping schedule and my waking up schedule. So that's what I try to do to keep up.
Correct. Or to add to that, Gary, sometimes yeah, if you are like managing three time zones, I think yeah, at least three, right? You set three major activities, right, per day.
Yeah.
Yeah, because here in the
It's not always.
Philippines,
It's not
yeah,
always like that. I mean, it's not
correct.
always. I have a meeting in Dubai, U.S., and
Or
Manila.
US Asia.
Most, yeah, the most consistent meetings I have are in Manila.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's a good
Excellent.
point also. Right? Write it down, and then maybe to add to that, it's more of really before the day ends, Gary. Right? You summarize what has happened for the day, and then whatever it is, then that's where you will start planning for
For the next
the
day.
following day. For the following day.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you so
and
much.
with the
Yeah,
activity that Macy has, some of the things that you might be considering, and maybe you're already doing it, is things like answering questions like how do you capture things from
mm,
meetings that you're having with people, so that you know what follow-up activities you have and how do you go about
correct.
scheduling those to make sure that they get done. But it sounds like you're juggling things very well, Macy.
Thank
Correct.
you so much, sir.
Congratulations.
My secret weapon is a calendar. Like I'm more of a paper person, so my calendar is
Yes,
it's like a notebook. Yes.
correct. Correct.
Very
So your
good.
calendar is what now? Quarter one, 2022. I think that's the best strategy. Yeah, should be because we're now on the last quarter of this year, and
Yeah, I
just like
actually
how
just ordered on Amazon.
Amazon. All right. Yeah. So best of luck, Macy, and I hope to see you. Until when will you be in San Francisco?
I think maybe sir around November.
Great,
And then
great. So I'll be
I'm just waiting for, the quarantine and the some lockdown restrictions to ease up in Manila before
wow.
before I go home.
Let's pray. Let's pray for that easing down of quarantine here. But
Absolutely.
I hope
I
to see
heard that
you
they're
in
changing some of the I
yeah.
heard that they're trying to change the guidelines for non
Correct.
OFWs and foreigners planning to go to the Philippines.
Yeah, I hope it will. Yeah, at least it can help our country, like regain back that confidence from foreign investors and tourists alike. So thank you, Macy, for your time. I know it's still early, but I hope we were able to start your day right. We hope to see you again
Next week.
next week. All right. Thank you, Macy.
Thank you
Take
so
care,
much, sir.
Macy.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Nice to meet you.
So there you go, Gary. So yes, we end this. Anything that you'd like to share with our like audience and listeners as we end our session 7 and we prepare for next week's final session for the
Yeah,
series 4 or season 4.
Yeah, I think that that our conversation with Macy was very interesting from the standpoint
Correct.
that everybody's situation is a little bit different. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're juggling time zones like she is and having so many different activities going on, I think it highlights the need for good organization if you're going to be productive. Whether you're
Mm-hmm.
using a calendar or a task list or whatever
Correct.
tools you're using, make sure that the tools that you have are really serving you in the way you're accomplishing, and realizing that
Correct.
there is no one system that's going to fit anyone. You have
Correct.
to be able to try things and work on them, and be flexible to changing as necessary
Correct.
in order to enhance your productivity. So I think that's one of the key takeaways for me is be flexible, be open to new ideas when it comes to
Yes.
becoming more productive, but monitor your progress and see what's working for you and what isn't.
Correct. Or yeah, to add to that, my key learning takeaway here is don't stop writing down. I know we are in the technology side, yeah, as you adapt yourself into this, but still it's good thing that you have a backup plan. And sometimes when you write it on paper, just keep on writing, because when you write it, sometimes it has a good effect on our memory as well. So
Absolutely.
again, this is Coach Jonathan. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you again next week. You are watching Champion Ka. We are building leaders.
And leading builders. God bless everyone.
God
We'll see
bless
you next
everyone.
week.
Bye.
We are the Global Academy, your training hub for entrepreneurship and business leadership. Headquartered in New Zealand, we have satellite offices in Melbourne, New York, Dubai, and Manila. The Global Academy New Zealand offers strategic master classes with our 4M proven framework that transforms mindset, develops mastery, strengthens management, and mentorship programs to sustain your organization competitive advantage. We are the Global Academy New Zealand, building leaders, leading builders. See you in class.